Okay, I wasn't speaking. Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. I'm going to also try to get rid of those Slack notifications up there from Stephanie, so just a second. Hello, everybody. This is Erin. I am excited to do this encore presentation of flipping the higher ed classroom with Canvas. This was presented a week ago today at the CanvasCon at IUPUI. Guys, just a second. I'm not used to working with one screen, so just a minute, and I'm gonna close that down. All right. So I'm really excited that I'm getting the chance to present this again for those of you who couldn't be there. And I know we tried to do the live presentation last week, and we had some audio issues. So my name is Erin Keefe, and sorry, I'm going to quit Slack altogether. You don't need to see my notifications. Okay. My name is Erin Keefe, and I have quite a bit of teaching experience. I had a long teaching career in Pennsylvania, worked both in brick and mortar and charter schools, brick and mortar and fully online. In my last job in Pennsylvania, I was our professional development coordinator and our school administrator, and I helped move that school from Moodle to Canvas. And then I moved myself. I am a full-time Canvas trainer. I live outside of Philadelphia in a town you may have heard of called Westchester, Pennsylvania. And when I had the opportunity to present at the CanvasCon at IUPUI, and they asked me to speak about something for the higher ed track, I was really excited to come up with this presentation about flipping the classroom. It is something that has been around for quite a while. And there's a ton of research about it. At the end of this presentation, I'll show you that I've shared this entire presentation plus all the articles that I referenced in the comments, so I'll show you where you can get it. But I did a ton of research about this topic, and I think you'll be excited about what I'm going to show you. So we're going to talk about not only why it's great to flip the classroom, but what are the tools that we have inside of Canvas that are going to allow us to do that. So what is the flipped classroom? Well, you basically take that Bloom's taxonomy pyramid that you're used to seeing and you turn it upside down. And you do those things that are at the lower level of Bloom's, the things that are the remembering or understanding activities, and you do those before class. And then during class, you can get to those higher levels of Bloom's and get to the applying and the analyzing things, and you can actually watch your students maybe struggle with them, help them out in real time, have them work collaboratively with one another, and then they can do those very upper levels of Bloom then after class. Now, sometimes flipped classroom is called inverted learning. It's also been called peer instruction. But the purpose of it is to gain that first exposure learning, those lower levels of Bloom's, before you come to class, so that you can process that information, whatever it is that you're learning, in class with the instructor there and with your peers. Now, there are years and years and years of research. I think the very first kind of reference that I saw to flipped classroom goes back to 1998. So almost a good 20 years of research on it. All of the research supports significant gains for students who do their learning in a flipped environment across multiple disciplines. So it's not just something that works great for the humanities or for the sciences. The research has been done in every area, and the research says that this is a good thing to do, no matter what it is. So why does it work? This is some information from a book called How People Learn. I have a picture of it right there. Why does flipped learning work? So there's 3 science of learning key findings that show that to develop competency in an area that we're studying, students have to do three things. They have to have a deep foundation of factual knowledge. So they have to, really have a lot of facts in order to then process any further information. The second thing they need to do is to be able to understand the facts and the ideas in the context of some kind of conceptual framework. So they have to take that information and then make sense out of it. And the third thing is, if we want our students to be competent in an area of study, they have to be able to organize knowledge in ways that facilitate retrieval and then also application. So they're going to have the facts, understand the facts, and then they're going to have to apply the facts. That makes sense, right, when we're talking about learning? So the flipped classroom is going to allow your students to use the new knowledge you're going to present with them, whatever the topic is that you're trying to teach them, while they're working with peers and instructors in real time. So they're going to be able to get feedback, and you're going to be able to correct misconceptions right there on the fly. So it's one of the real benefits of flipping your classroom. So key elements of the flipped classroom. If we're thinking about how are we going to do this, there are four main things that we need to think of. I'm going to talk about all of them. So the very first thing, key element number one, if you're flipping your classroom, you have to give an opportunity for your students to get that first exposure prior to coming to class. So they have to come in contact with those new facts, with that new information before they ever come to your classroom. And I've got two examples of how you could do it. So a lot of times you're going to present that information to them either through articles or through videos. And we're not going to have the students do that in class. We're going to have them do that before they come to us. So I have some ideas then of how we could use Canvas to deliver this information to them. So for things like articles, we can upload them and share them through the file space. We can also do embedded or links on pages in our modules. And when we're talking about videos, we've got tons of opportunities for sharing in Canvas a video. So these could be created by you guys outside of the course. They could be embedded through something called Edpuzzle, which I'm going to show you in a minute. It's just one of the ideas I came up with when I was putting this together. We can embed videos through LTIs. So if you have things like TED-Ed or YouTube or Vimeo that are connected to your learning management system, or even ARC, and your learning management system is Canvas. So if you have those LTIs already hooked up with your Canvas instance, you're going to be able to embed videos that way. You're also going to be able to upload or share screencasts, and I'm going to show you a couple of ideas for that as well. And then we can create videos, of course, inside of our rich content editor using the media tool in there. I was thinking about this key element number one. I was also building a module over here with some flipped information. Now, I did share this entire module in the Commons, so when we're done today, I'm going to show you where it is, what it's called, so you can grab it. But the topic that I built the module about is a panda. If any of you have been in my trainings before, you know, you're not surprised. I build everything about pandas. So if we're thinking about, if I'm teaching my students about conservation and the giant panda, my key element number one, I want to give my students information prior to coming to class. Perhaps I'm going to give them an article that I want them to read. This one happens to be an article that I liked, so I saved it as a PDF. And then what I did was I embedded it on a page. So the students are able to read it prior to coming to class. I'm not going to take the class time to do the reading. I'm going to expect that they do this before they come to class, so then we can do something with it once they get there. So that's for key element number one, a video, or not a video, an article, something I want them to read. I mentioned to you guys that, you know, one of the ways we're going to get information to our students could potentially be through video. And it could just be a straight video that we then bring in through YouTube. But one of the things I showed off when I was at IUPUI, this is called Edpuzzle. And Edpuzzle is something that probably your K-12 counterparts know a lot about, but I think it works great for higher ed as well. So what you're able to do with Edpuzzle is upload videos. This one I actually found on YouTube and uploaded it. I get is, see, I've embedded questions down here. So I could play the video and my students could watch it. And I believe that's going to play for you guys. And I'm going to come over here to the first question mark. And I'm going to show you that this is what, so I created these embedded questions that are related to the topic. And they could be open entry like this, where there's a text box. They could be true, false. They could be multiple choice. Because one of the things that I know about my students is that sometimes they are just going to sit and watch an entire video. They need to do something with it. So with something like Edpuzzle, I don't know if you saw when I first logged in, but it's connected to my Google account. So my students can actually join class that I've created. I'm going to be able to see how they responded. Even though this is embedded onto a page, I might not really be, you know, this isn't like a quiz or like a huge grade, it might be participation, but I'm going to be able to see how they were responding as they walked through this video. So Edpuzzle is one of the things that I would definitely suggest if we're going to use key element number 1, giving information to students. To get information in there. And Edpuzzle is one of our friends. And by that, I mean, it's going to give me the embed code. So when I was done creating this, all I did was grab the embed code. And on this page in here, when I built it, I just switched over from my rich content editor. This is just going to take a second to load up. I just switched over from my regular rich content editor to this HTML editor right there. And I embedded that code that Edpuzzle gave me. A couple of other things that I just wanted to point out. So here are some other video resources, right? Because we want to think of all the different ways that we can get information out to our students so that when they come to class that they're prepared, they've gotten that base knowledge. So I think screencasts are a great way to do that. And I have 2 that are listed there. The first one is Screencastify, and the other one is Screencast-O-Matic. Now, Screencast-O-Matic is a little bit different, but Screencastify, both of them work great, and both of them are free. There is a paid version. I learned when I was at IUPUI that I think a lot of you in higher ed do use screencasting, where we can share then what we're doing on our screen or work out problems, and you know, especially for higher level maths or sciences. Screencastify is, if you're a Chrome user, I'm able to put a Screencastify extension right in here. So this is actually living right there on my toolbar. So I could record and talk through what's happening on my screen. I could even turn my video camera on so my students could see me talking to them and working through a problem. Maybe I'm going to edit a paper, or, you know, I can think of 5 million different ways that we could use this. So we could record this tab that's right there and there. And then we're able to embed into Canvas. I listed those other ideas that I had there. So we could do those LTIs that I mentioned, or we could use that record and upload media tool that's right there in our rich content editor. So lots of ways that we can get video into Canvas, and also Studio, and also written works, articles. Both of those things would fulfill that key element number 1 for student understanding. And I'm going to go to the next slide. The second big element, all right, so we've gotten all our content we want our students to do before they come to class. We need to give them an incentive. It's just a fact of life that we would love our students to be totally motivated and not have to get a grade or think they're going to be called on in class to do it, but we know that that's not always going to be the case. So what makes flipped learning work, key element number 2, is we need to give them an incentive for students to prepare for class. Now, what that means is a task for them to complete, and I have a couple of ideas here. This could be a short writing assignment, all right? And it could even be a discussion. I know that a lot of you probably already use the discussion tool in Canvas, so maybe I'm going to have them read that Panda article and then start the discussion before they come to class, so I can pull that discussion up in the classroom and pull out some great responses, and go from there. And we could, that's the way we open up the class. Maybe I'm going to have them turn in an assignment, a short assignment. Now I have an idea I'm going to show you in just a second. And another great task for the students to complete is just a few online quiz questions. So we're going to use the quiz tool. Doesn't have to be a quiz. This is really just going to be a quick way for me to get an assessment of, did my students do the reading, or did they watch the video, and do they understand it? So let me show you what that could look like in my course. So I'm going to give my students this video and reading homework check. And I will preview it for you. So it's worth 15 points. Just has some questions in here just to see, did you do the reading? Did you understand it? I'm going to be able to really quickly see then for my students when they're coming to class, who did it and who didn't, and who understood it and who didn't. And the reason why I love this tool for that is because I can really quickly see 2 things over here. So right before class starts, I can click moderate this quiz and I can see who completed it, right? Because here's all my students. Who did it? Looks like I had a bunch right there in the center, a bunch who didn't do it for whatever reason. And then I can look at my awesome quiz statistics. So these quiz statistics, I'm able to pull this open. This is one of my favorite tools. And I'm going to be able to look for each one of these questions in here. My students do. Now, if I come to a question where it looks like, okay, only 75% of them got this right. Looks like a couple students in there, maybe I need to pull them aside. Maybe they need to go work with one another on this aspect of Panda life. But you can then get all of these great statistics in here and see, when we get down to here, oosh, our students really had a hard time with this. So maybe this is a concept that I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time in class today. I had hoped that they would have gotten everything they needed from the article or the video, but it looks like for the first maybe 10 minutes, I'm going to have to talk a little bit about why pandas are actually savage beasts, because only 38% of students understood that concept. So I love the idea of giving them a couple question quiz. Doesn't have to count as a quiz, just homework or participation points. But you're going to get a lot of information about your students really quickly from using a tool like that. There's that other mix in here then of students who are taking a look at applying some of that information. So this is that incentive. I gave them a discussion. I'm asking them to start the discussion before they come to class. We could continue it, of course, but I'm going to be able to look through here and see, right before class starts, how are my students doing in here? Did anyone have a great point? Maybe I'm going to use John's response as a jump off into a larger class discussion for today. And the other idea I had for an incentive then for our students is something like this. So this is a short, just a short writing assignment that has a rubric attached. But this one I have set up, one of the ideas I thought of was, I don't want to have to do a ton of the grading, right? I want to engage the students in this in class. And so this is set up for peer review. So what will happen is the students are actually going to use this rubric in here, and they're going to work on grading each other's work, and then having that discussion then with their peer partner in class. And I'm going to be able to listen and walk around then and see when they're having that conversation about these positions that they've written. I'm going to really get a good idea of who has been thinking through this and has developed a strong position, what students are really struggling with the concepts that we've talked about. So this one, I'm not even going to grade. I'm going to let peer reviews take care of this whole thing right there. And I'm going to be able to watch it happen in real time. Okay, because key item number 3 is we need some mechanism to assess how our students are understanding this information that we're delivering them. So these mechanisms are designed to reduce the need for extensive out-of-class written feedback, because the students are going to be doing it in class. I'm going to be able to watch them wrestling with this content and participating in these activities. So those things that I just mentioned, they kind of set, there's like a dual purpose. That's why when we're looking at them in the module, I have them set to key item 2/3. It's not only the incentive, it's also going to be the mechanism that we can assess student learning. So those discussions can then allow for deeper class discussions. Those pre-class writings, assignments, like I said, I can preview them, but we're going to give them to peers to evaluate. And we're going to do those pre-class online quizzes and use that data for that just-in-time instruction. So that could be whole class if everyone bombed it, small group, maybe I'm going to pull, you 4 together because it looked like you were having a hard time with this concept and we're going to have a little chat about it. Or we can jigsaw. Maybe I see that we've got half the class that's really strong in one thing and half the class that's still struggling. So I can pair them up and do some, I'm going to have some jigsaw teaching, and they're going to teach one another those difficult concepts. So the last item that we have, the key item number 4 for making flipped classroom work and be successful, is in-class activities that are going to focus on getting us to those higher levels of bloom, so the higher level cognition activities. And we're going to have time for that because the students will have done those lower levels, just getting the base knowledge and then wrestling with it and practicing a little bit. So now we can take the majority of class time applying and analyzing these new concepts. So I can use my class time now, instead of for me up in front and delivering lectures, that the students are like, I don't even know if I need to be here. I mean, I could have had a tape recorder and just get this information later. No, that's not what it's going to be anymore. We're going to do stuff in class. We're going to do experiments and have student-led discussions, and we're going to work on quantitative problems, and we're going to have debates, and we're going to do data analysis and synthesis and case studies. And the classroom becomes a very active, engaging place where the acquisition of knowledge, the base level knowledge, is going to happen before you come to class, and then the application of the knowledge is going to happen while we're together in class. One of the ideas that I had for that is we could create, we could take these conservation case studies. So I set this all up in here. And so maybe I'm going to put my students in groups. I'm going to use the grouping feature inside of Canvas. I'm going to come over here to this people page. And I am going to create a group set for case study and split my students up into 4 groups randomly. So I'm going to let Canvas do that. And now my students, they're going to be able to have the extension then of what we're doing in class. I gave them the project. The project has been discussed in class. They're going to work on it in class. In addition, they're also going to have a space in Canvas to work through it. I'm going to be able to look at the work, not only that they're doing inside of class, but also any work they do outside of class in order for them to turn in this group project that I've assigned to them. So I'm going to get a really nice look at who did what, and then they're going to turn in that case study analysis to me. It's set up as a group project in here. Advantages of flipping the classroom. Well, there are a lot. I'm going to pull up the slide. I'm not going to read them all to you. But this will allow for a lot of things that we know are super important, right? The students are going to move at their own pace. I'm going to be able to see then how my students can best learn. I'm going to get a lot of insight just by watching them in the classroom, working through stuff, seeing their learning styles. We're going to be a lot more active during class time. And so we're using that time a lot more creatively and effectively. I spoke with one of the professors after my presentation last Monday at IUPUI, and she said, all I get is one class period with my students anymore. That's all I get. And she said, so this has been huge for me because we do a lot outside of the classroom, and then we come together and they come with questions, and we really do the hard stuff in class. So you can see there that advantages of flipping the classroom in there. We're going to get the students really active, and the big one is the engagement, right? The students are going to be super engaged. The expectation is they're going to have to be engaged. Now, at first, you might see with that engagement thing, if students aren't used to this, they're going to be like, I don't want to do that. I just want to sit here and take notes. You know, just give me the notes. Just give me the lecture notes, and I'm going to, you know, this is uncomfortable for me. They'll get used to it. There's a lot of the research and a lot of the articles that I read that point that out, that it's a learning curve for the students to get used to a classroom that is expecting a lot more of them. But the engagement piece is huge, because with the engagement, it's going to come better learning. So I will take questions. I'm also on Twitter, and there's my Twitter handle, @MissKeefe. I know Stephanie is going to see if there's any questions, and she's going to Slack them to me. While she is doing that, I want to let you know that I have a whole list of these links of everything I referenced in here. So to Screencastify, to Screencast-O-Matic, and then I also have lists and articles. And where all of this is, I shared it in the Canvas Commons. So all you need to do is for flipping the classroom, and in there, module of content that I was just showing you, and one of the links that's in there as well is to my slide deck. So I hope that that was helpful for you, and that you got some good information out of today. And if you want to reach out to me, I'll put my Twitter handle back up there. You can get a hold of me that way. I'm @MissKeefe, and feel free to grab my resources out of the Commons. But thanks, guys, for joining me today, and look forward to chatting with you sometime soon.